we're recording.
We're recording.
Are we working? Are we on?
We're on.
Yep.
All right, we'll begin the meeting. And the first thing on the item on the agenda is the Public Safety Committee meeting. Councilman Ligon.
Mr. Chairman, due to the events of the last several hours, I would ask the room to observe a moment of quiet meditation in honor of those who were victims and their families of the tragedy out in Nevada. Please commence that moment of silence. Thank you very much. I'll now move to item number 2. Item number 1 is our call to order on number 2, the Chief's report. Chief, you can take the microphone and smile for the camera.
Good evening, everyone. This is the police report for the town of McCandless Police Department for September 2017. We experienced a burglary during the daylight hours on the 9,000 block of North Florence Road. Burglary is being investigated. There's a similar burglaries in the surrounding area all over western Pennsylvania. Our detectives are working on a task force with other detectives and investigators. We did get some fingerprints which we will be evaluating and awaiting results from the crime lab. Under commendable performances, I would like to take the time to commend our good citizens that stopped over to our interactive police booth to say hello during our recent Town and Community Day. It reinforces strong feelings about the great folks in our community, and we were all touched by the good rapport to see between our citizens and our police. Please know that we are extremely grateful for your continued support as we strive to be the best we can be professionally for you and serve you in the best possible way we can.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Council again for accepting the K-9 program. Sergeant Madden has started training. He is with our new dog, Joy. We've been receiving many offers of donations to the program and a lot of positive input from our community. We are hoping to introduce our new K-9 at the LaRoche College Light Up Night in December, a way to bring joy to our holidays, no pun intended.
Nice.
I received an incredibly sincere thank email from the Forest Trails Homeowners Association. I've attached to our council's copy for your review. I want to commend Officer Allshouse, who went above and beyond the call to serve and represent the department and the community that night, interacting with the children and doing some great public relations. It was nice that the individual dropped us a note. Also like to commend our good residents in Graybrook. We had an incident over there where alertness of reporting suspicious activity. Upon our investigation, we located a vehicle, and after a short saturation of the area, found a wanted person. Work together very well with our community, and you are our good eyes and ears, and we need to work together. We appreciate you calling, and that's a very big help to us. It was very nice. The people at the Vincentian Academy and the students recognized emergency personnel on 9/11. We were asked to speak, and I was actually got to sing Amazing Grace with them. It's very touching, and we got to say hello to each and every student that was there. And I think it's important. It's nice when we can interact with the students on a basis that they see us in a different way as police officers, and that was very nice. Training, several officers participated in an active shooting drill conducted at the Ross Park Mall on off hours. We were involved in a critique, and I wanted to say that in particular, I want to commend two of our officers. Our new officer, Melissa Duvall, who was in the exercises, and Officer David Martin, got very high ratings from the critique, and I'm pleased to hear those comments. Whenever you're a police chief and you hear good things about your people, they're kind of like your extended family. You're appreciative of that. Under new initiatives, we're in the process of creating a safe zone. Councilman Zachary's been very involved in it, and we're very close to getting that done at the end of this week. It'll be a safe exchange area under 24-hour surveillance here in the parking lot, and we're looking forward to having that. We think it'll be a good, safe situation for her. And I want to thank my administrative assistant, Denise. As you know, October 1st was Sunday, so to get this data, we have an active live system. I'd like to recognize all my people that worked hard. We scrambled to get this report to you here tonight, so I want to give Denise my thanks. Respectfully, Mr. Councilman, that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you very much, Chief, and that's an excellent report. We'll move along now to item number 3 on our, unless any council members have any question regarding the chief's report. Hearing none, we'll move along to item number 3, discuss the receipt of a petition from 10 of 11 property owners or residents on Highview Street asking town council to repeal the no parking zone on Highview Street, which extends 200 feet from its terminus. This no parking zone was created by Town Ordinance number 1305, adopted May 24th, 2001. I've not seen this petition or the rationale behind it. Chief, can you expand on this?
Yeah, we looked at it, and there's concerns over the parking. I don't think it's really necessary at this point in time. We could take a look at it and probably change it back. That would be council's decision, but it's probably is outdated, and there would be no problems. The petition makes sense if they wanted to, in fact, have those parking signs taken out.
My question is, as you're looking at it, if you would keep in mind the fire trucks and ambulance, public works trucks, that's a narrow street. I'm not saying I object to taking them down, but I would ask that you be conscious of it when you're checking it and making a decision.
Absolutely. I think we can network and convey that information to them if they are parked or any type of emergency vehicles can't get through. They would be asked.
Thank you.
Does anybody know the history of how they were put there?
I do. My husband and I have resided there since 1987.
Could you come up to the mic for?
Sure.
I done.
Yeah, but the people.
We want you to be on
Later.
camera.
It won't record.
Identify yourself, please.
My name is Melinda Harold. My husband and I have lived on the street since 1987. The ordinance was actually told to me that went into effect in 1986, and that was Mark. I was referred when we've never had signs on the street since we've moved there. And in 1987, until our street was just repaved, it was just repaved this past summer. And when I talked to Valerie, that's who I was told, I was told to talk to her. She transferred me to Mark. I don't have last names, but I'm sure.
It's right there.
Right there.
He said it was an ordinance, was put into place in 1986, and it was due to the residents that lived in the house before my husband and I owned it, because they were parking junk cars on the street, and people could not get through. So they got a petition together, they put no parking signs. My husband and I are very familiar with the neighborhood. I walk it every day. There is not one other street, not even one single other street, that has a no parking sign up and down the streets. All the streets are the same. They're all the same and we do have a turnaround at the bottom of our street that they don't have it anymore, but up until this summer, just like the bottom of every other dead-end street, it has no parking from November 1st through March 31st for snow removal. It is a dead-end street. There is no buses on the street. All of a sudden, they popped up. When I spoke to Mark, Mark said it's because they redid our street, and when they redo the street, they go back and they re-sign everything the way it was originally supposed to be re-signed. We've never had the signs. We don't need the signs. I and my husband personally just had a block party for the entire street, because we have a lot of new residents with young children. It's like we need to get to know everyone on the street so that we can be of help to anyone on the street. They all came to our house. We don't have a need for no parking signs on our street. We all have relatives that come. We have parties at Easter. We have parties at Christmas. With those up, we have nowhere to park our family.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
There's apparently one property owner
That would
is-
be Dave Cutler.
has an opposing point of view. What's that person's rationale, if you happen to know?
He opposes everything that goes on that we agreed to on the street. He was the only person on the street that did not attend the block party. When my daughters had their graduation parties 5 and 7 years ago, everyone on the street was invited to my kids' high school graduation from Eden Christian Academy. He's the only one who didn't come. He's just a very angry person, and I can't answer that. He
I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, when I held the chief's position back in the, I think it was the Jurassic period, the fact of the matter was the chief can always lift the no parking restriction for block parties. I don't know how many times I did it for Seminole
Well, when
and
it's a
some of
block
the,
party, they all walked there.
I'm sorry?
I said, when it's a block party, it was just like our street, they all walked to our house. So that wasn't the issue, the block party. The issue is, we all have relatives that come for holidays, and they can't park on the street. Our street's just as wide as Harold Street, which is right next door, which is a dead-end street. Gloria Street is the busiest street in the neighborhood, and they can park. You come up over the knoll of the hill on Gloria, you'll wipe someone out because people were parked and you have to go around them and you can't see who's coming the other way. We don't have that issue on our street. It's a dead-end street. It has 7 houses on it.
Well, the chief will take a look into that to see how, see if it still applies. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to speak to that issue?
I just want to add one thing.
Sir,
Every house,
You have to
I'm
tell us.
I'm her husband.
But you have to
that's
tell
not an
us.
excuse.
We're
We
You have
recording.
to,
We can't
Meeting's
record you back
recorded.
I'm
there.
sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, every house has a driveway, so cars don't really park in the street unless something's going on. The main thing is it's an eyesore.
Please identify yourselves.
Oh, sorry, I'm-
So that for the record, thank you.
I'm Chris Harrell.
Thanks,
Living
Chris.
on that street.
Thank you, Chris.
So, it seemed like just an eyesore, like these signs are like popped right in the middle, like everybody's yards. Like this one guy has this fancy like brush and everything, boom, the sign's right in the middle. He's like, why would they put that there? So, that's really the main issue, so just want to add that.
I don't think any of us have any objection, just as I said to the chief, as long as it's safe, when in
Right.
an ambulance or a fire truck or anything like that.
Right. And everybody usually parks their own driveways, unless
Okay,
some event.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll await the chief's report to make a decision on the,
I think you got it.
if we-
You guys reported.
Yeah, we got it.
I'm not opposed to it. I think that they can be taken down, we'll monitor the situation. And Councilman Byers, we will look at that, and patrol that, make sure. And we have our good citizens here, so we want to make sure that there isn't congestion there, that an emergency vehicle can get through. That's the main concern. And as long as that's all done, I would recommend, I think that it can be done.
One thing you don't ever
Mr.
want to do is park across the street when someone else is already parked on the other side.
We have never
Immediately
had an
across.
issue.
That would restrict the fire truck from getting through. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear from Public Works on.
okay. Mr. Sabina, do you have any
if he has
statement
Mark
regarding
Stiles,
this?
any comments?
The only, I believe the ordinance that went in 2001 is the ordinance requiring no parking 200 feet from the end of the road, not the entire length of the road.
Right, which superseded the one from 1986, and so.
We would need to keep that because we do have trouble down there. It's a narrow street, there's not much of a turnaround. And when we plow snow or salt in winter, it is very difficult to turn around down there because it's narrow. So we do need to keep that 200-foot area open to enable our trucks to get in and out. But other than that, I don't have a problem with removing the rest of it.
Those two signs were there, correct?
Yes.
At the bottom of the street?
Yes.
And you're not objecting to those?
Nope. Neither are the people that live at the bottom of the street. They're fine with it.
So I get, we'll have to take this up for a vote at the regular meeting then? Is that-
Well, we would have to advertise,
Yeah.
make sure there's no conflict in either of these ordinances. It sounds like we're retaining the ordinance that says that no parking for certain times of the year, Mark? November 1st through
November 1st and March 31st.
March 31st, 200 feet at the end of the street, and the other signs would be the ones that would be removed. If I read that correctly, we'll advertise the ordinance accordingly.
And since yours is a nice close knit over there, obviously network, that's the major concern, that it's open for emergency vehicles.
Right, and I think everybody's pretty good at doing that.
Thank you.
So this would require amending the ordinance of or repealing the ordinance of 1987, was that, did you say?
It's-
That's not in my paperwork. Okay. All right, and then we're all in accord then on the repealing of that previous ordinance. Item number 4, discuss the creation of a no parking zone on North Florence Road from its intersection with Louisville Drive to its terminus. Mark, about how long is that in distance? That's a couple thousand, 1,200 feet or
Now,
something?
it's, I have no idea.
That's a
I
good,
can
Thou-
well,
1,000
if it
feet
goes,
maybe.
yeah, because it comes off of, where it comes from, where it meets Louisville, around the,
Here we go.
around the horseshoe down to the end, that's a good,
It's 1,000 feet, I would say, at the most.
at least a drive and a 3 with that. Okay, so why are we considering it for a no parking area then?
I believe we've talked earlier this year about concerns that there is an abandoned turnaround that was put in when the first part of North Florence was built, I believe in the 60s. I'm not sure exactly what the time frame was, but that cul-de-sac ceased to be needed when they extended the road. We've already talked about when we pave the road next, we're going to eliminate that cul-de-sac. However, in the lower cul-de-sac down where the duplexes are at, I don't know how many for sure of the folks that live down there, but a great many of them park head in, which creates a no turnaround zone in a turnaround. I mean, we can't get down there most of the time with a salt truck. Certainly can't get down there with a plow truck. And we have asked, and back in March, a letter went to each home down there, asking them to please refrain from parking on the street so that we could get the snow removal equipment, the garbage trucks. And if there was ever a fire down there, you're not gonna get fire equipment into the cul-de-sac because of the way they're parked. Since the letter went out in March, there's been no real change that I've seen with the on-street parking down there. And in the letter, we indicated that if things didn't change, that we would need to consider a no parking zone in that cul-de-sac. So I believe, in addition to that, there was also some concern that if we stopped the parking in the cul-de-sac, that those folks were gonna continue to park further up along North Florence Drive. So as we talked about it further, the best way to do that is to start at Louisville and make the no parking zone from Louisville down into the cul-de-sac.
The distance, Ralph, is 455 feet.
I thought we were talking going the opposite direction. Okay, I was going the opposite direction on north. So you're talking about down where the double cul-de-sac is then?
Correct.
Okay. Well, for public safety and public works purposes, that makes a lot of sense then. I mean, it's just for the sake of, fire trucks and public works vehicles.
Most often, particularly when the guys have the plows on, as I've been told by the guys, they back down in there and drop the plow and plow out because they just can't turn around back there.
Have the residents of that street expressed a view one way or another on this issue?
Not to me.
They have been
me,
notified
they
by
didn't say
letter,
no.
letters in your packet.
Okay.
Is there anyone, other members of council care to comment on this agenda item?
I have been down there, it certainly seemed impossible to even turn a regular car around the nights that I was down there. And they're certainly using beyond the area, even as far as coming up and dumping their grass clippings on private property, farther up the hill.
Just wanted add one other, wasn't it just a couple of years ago that we had an issue about the snow in that area? And there was accumulations of snow that, would you describe that if you remember exactly what it was?
There was a significant storm. In fact, I was called over. I went over with my vehicle, a sedan, and saw the situation Mark described. A lot of cars parked head in, and basically no place to push snow.
And they all do have parking lots, parking driveways inside.
And garages,
As far as
yeah.
I could see, there were driveways serving every unit.
Any other member of council have a comment? Does anyone in the audience care to comment on this issue? Ma'am, come forward, please. Identify yourself by name and address, please.
Hi, Yvonne Short, 9280 North Florence Road. As the plow, I've been there for 3 years. The duplexes are set up. There's only one set of duplexes that each has their own driveway. There are 4 others that we share a driveway. Now, my set of duplexes, my neighbors, they have 2 cars, they have 2 drivers. My house, we have 4 drivers, so we have 4 cars. So in order for our duplex, we have a total of 6 cars between both sides. So we can only fit so many in the back, so many in the front. Now, I've noticed with other neighbors too, they park out front because they can't get back in to their driveways because people are already blocked in. And try to set up times with like their neighbors and everything to try to get out, but sometimes it doesn't work well. I have 3 people in my residence that work in restaurant industry, and we have people leave in school 6 o'clock in the morning. We leave at 8, we come back, we leave, we come back in at 2 o'clock in the morning from work. So try to get in and out and everything, instead of waking the neighbors up at 5 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, can you move your car? You know, we've had the times where we'd have to ride over the hump to go through the neighbor's driveway, but they don't like that because we're ruining their grass and the shrubs and everything else. But as for the snow plow, the building next to us, they plow the snow face first right into their front yard. I have not seen a snow truck back in. I've seen them plow in through the front, back up, and then take it up to the street. I mean, whenever it's snowing, yeah, we clear out our driveway because we have our own plow that we can do that, and we'll move the cars in so the township can come and take it. But as of, trying to park 6 cars for 2 families, it's kind of tough because we share a driveway. Basically, everybody does down there but one set of houses. They each have their own, but we share a driveway. Yes, we have a garage, but my garage, you can't even really fit a car in there because I don't have, the storage downstairs. My duplex is on top of both garages. So my storage is my garage. I don't have a finished basement. I don't have a basement for storage. My garage is my storage. I do put 2 motorcycles in there, but I can't fit a car. Right now I have 4 cars down back.
So you have,
Both my neighbors are parked out front, and I'm parked out front or in the driveway in the morning.
you have 4 cars and 2 motorcycles?
We do. 2 motorcycles are in the garage. But we all have 4 cars that we use every day. My neighbors use both of their cars every day.
So you don't have 4 cars?
I have 4 cars, yes.
You have 4
I
cars?
have the 4 cars. My neighbors have the 2. I mean, we're in and out. I think my daughter leaves at 6:30 in the morning. She'll come back at 2. She'll leave at 3 or 4 to go to work. Then I'll come back in at 8. My son will leave at between 2 and 4. Paul comes home anywhere between 5 and 9. Then if I have to go work at the bar, then I don't get home till anywhere between 10 and 12, or maybe even midnight, 2 o'clock. But then my neighbor, she works 12-hour shifts over at Vincentian Nursing Home. So she might work 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., or she'll work 1 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's kind of hard to schedule moving of the vehicles between both of us in one driveway. And when we have people come visit, where are they gonna park? You know, holidays and everything else.
Is it possible to park parallel in this circle instead of head in? Because head in, of course, you know, you can fit more in there, but it takes up more room. But can they parallel park around the?
I believe they've actually got so many cars down there that would be impossible. However, and the chief can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is illegal to park head in.
Yeah, Google Maps shows 3 cars parked there just on the maps, head in.
Where are they?
This one here, this one here, and
Which
this one
is-
here.
And they're both stuck out on the street, aren't they?
Yeah, they're out in the middle of the street.
There's a garbage truck in there.
We're all gone. And my neighbor, she's home, she'll pull her car into the front yard.
Into the grass.
Yep, she pulls it into the grass. We've had to do it too.
I wonder if they shouldn't, at this point, have that grass paved. The land, is it all one landlord down there? Or?
My building is the same, but I'm not sure about anybody, he doesn't know anybody else's.
Well, it looks like you could certainly get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 8 spots head in parking if they were if the area of the grass was paved. Just beyond the street, and it would not affect the cul-de-sac. Actually, looks like your building's got a pretty big back driveway.
It does go back to two garages that I live above, yes. We
Right,
have
the
4
red
cars-
brick one with the pillars?
Pardon me?
Are you the red brick one with the pillars?
No, I'm not.
You-
I'm
you're the-
over one.
Mansard roof.
The what?
The roof that you can see from the front?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. I was looking at the top view.
What do you usually do in these situations? What do you usually do in these situations? This can't be the first time it's
It's
happened.
pretty unique.
This is actually the only cul-de-sac that we've got this problem in. And there are, I'm gonna say, 150 to 200 cul-de-sacs throughout the town. This is the only one that we have this problem.
What
We
do
have
you-
5
what do you-
duplexes at the
I've
end of
given-
one
I've given the
cul-de-sac.
drivers permission to refuse to go down there. And because they're afraid that on an icy night, they're gonna slide into cars and damage cars. And trying to get in and out of there with a snowplow. The guys have expressed concern that they're gonna damage cars that way, and then they're gonna be held responsible for it. So I've given them permission to just leave.
What do you suggest as a solution?
I don't know. The only, the only way to, excuse me, the only way really to make it any better, as Steve said, would be for the owners to provide parking on the lawns, to do away with the lawns in front of the buildings. There is no other way to do it. And she's got 4 cars, her neighbor's got 2. That's probably at least 14 cars for a duplex. I mean, I know people who have cars, and, you know, the only thing you can do is try to provide more area for them to park in. But,
But we can't force anyone to do that with their grass.
no,
And I never knew that we had the back end whenever we parked in there. I've been here for 3 years and I've never known
you
that.
can't.
It's not head in or back in, it's
You have to
it's
parallel
parallel.
park.
Parallel, never known.
Yeah, it's in the vehicle code.
Satellite.
You have to parallel park. You can't park head in or tail in, or however you wanna word it. But that's not legal to do. And the worst situation down there is if there is a fire, with the way the cars are parked down there, I doubt that they get much apparatus down in there to work on the fire. So by default, if you wanna say, there's a situation created that could be a health hazard.
Looks like 3 of these duplexes actually have enough room in their backyards to easily, yours and the next door neighbor to your left in particular, have enough room to put 6 new spots in even. If they had to, when you look up the property lines, you guys own down into, well, you don't, but your landlord owns down into the woods.
Yeah, you go back and then it goes down to a hill.
Yeah, but if he put 4 spots here, 4 spots here, that's 8 spots on just those two. This one has room a little bit, the other two do not.
Yeah, like this household, there's 2 cars on this side, there's 3 cars on this side. She has 1, there's 1, they just moved in, there's 2, there's 4, there's 1, there's 2, and then I think they have 2 and they have 2.
So to me, as far as what I can see, there's room for 10 more spots that could be easily paved in the yard, or in the backyards of the cul-de-sac, and 8 more spots that could be easily paved in the front yards of the
If you can,
cul-de-sacs.
if you can convince the owner to spend the money to.
Well, I think the owner's gonna have to do something if he doesn't provide, you know, if.
You could always use, compressed gravel as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be
Right, it doesn't have to be
pavement.
paving it.
You can always,
Right.
use gravel pads. I've seen enough of those. The duplexes along a lane drive, several of them have gravel
The
pads in
ones
front
all
of
up, Bellcrest have gravel right on the side of the road.
them. Well, there you are.
Have you spoken to your landlord about possibly getting more parking?
I have not, it's very hard to try to get in touch with my landlord, it pretty much do. A little bit.
Can we get in touch with these landlords, Toby? Do we have the ability to,
Oh, here we have someone
we
here.
may have a landlord raising his hand?
You do.
Oh.
Yeah, I own 2 of the buildings.
And what's your thought? Can you come up
We
with
do
a
the
small?
Would you
Yeah,
step,
I'd be happy to. Thank you.
all right,
Perfect.
let's trade places.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Mike Lukowitz. I own 2 of the buildings there, 9283 and 9277 and 79. I appreciate the concern. I tried to look at this from both perspectives. First, I'd asked if the notice went to the owners, because truly, the only way I found out about this was one of the tenants happened to tell me about this. So in the future, I'd certainly recommend that notices of this nature in particular go to owners that may or may not be involved with the property or, reside at the property. Again, I've been listening to the debate. This is very similar to the previous issue that you just debated, where you just considered taking signs down. So, again, I'm sure that McCandless and the gentleman mentioned there's 150, maybe 200 cul-de-sacs. This one in particular is being, cited for, particular concern. But I think there has to be some evidence to that effect. I'm trying to figure out what we can do. Certainly you can't take the grass out in front. That would obviously devalue the properties and change the whole nature of that cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sacs obviously are valued. The concern that the lady certainly expressed is where the car's gonna go. You can outlaw it, you can put up no parking signs, people have to park somewhere. And you're right, the cars are gonna ultimately be further down the street and they're gonna park down there. And just, that would obviously be very congested. It's gonna push the problem further down the street, is really what it's gonna amount to, because there are people that reside there. There are multiple people. Almost every house, to her point, does have one driveway. And that does create a problem, because again, you can't park multiple cars. You do have issues of similar previous issue, have parties and family guests and all those things. The only thing I can suggest to you, is I was just trying to think of a solution that might work, would be if you could have the police patrol it a little bit more, so you have more evidence, and maybe issue warnings, or maybe just try to, recommend or try to get these folks to park where they can and try to avoid that. And at least maybe we'll have some information, maybe if we could at some future point reconsider with some information about how often and the frequency of this. Because again, just to pick this one particular cul-de-sac and to outlaw the parking is gonna be very difficult, have a significant impact on those folks. I do think this cul-de-sac is a bit unique with the amount of duplexes at the end. And we have no reports of anywhere else where there's head-in parking. So perhaps that's the first thing that folks ought to do, is parallel park. At minimum.
Well, and again, my only concern would be that the duplexes were approved, it was a McCandless approval process, so, I mean, I agreed, it is a big
Back in the
congestion.
day, when how many people, did people have 4 cars?
Exactly, they did.
So
That-
times
that's
have changed,
absolutely
so
true.
you may have to adapt the property too, so there's several things that could be at work here.
Right.
to
Oh, and I'd be happy to
attack
do
it
that
once.
if I thought if, it is difficult, as you know. I mean, it's just the confinement of the space and trying to get people to within that particular area. I just don't, I don't know the exact solution, but I'm not sure that outlawing the parking or having no parking signs there would really resolve the issue.
it's gonna push the issue somewhere else. People have to have park somewhere.
Well, how do you feel about that suggestion was about the compacted gravel extension of the back end of the driveway or parking area in the back of the house? How do you feel about that?
I'd be happy to have, believe me, if we could accommodate it, I'd be happy to have them park there. I'll look at that issue. This is literally the first I've heard of it. I just got this notice yesterday. But I'll be happy to try to encourage them and try to figure out ways that I can. I'm more, believe me, public safety, I understand. I mean, that's a great value to all of us. But what I'm trying to figure out is exactly where they can go with the cars. Because to the lady's previous point, most of these families do have multiple cars. So you have a duplex, probably more than likely 4 cars per duplex. I think that's pretty common. So I just don't know where those cars would be.
Which ones do you say you own two? Do you own 2 buildings?
Correct.
Four
83,
duplexes.
85, and 77.
When you're coming down, which ones are they?
The first two to the
on the right?
Yep,
The first house does not have any room in the back.
correct.
The second one looks like you'd be able to get some cars in the back.
And the
At
only
most,
problem
2
we've had
spots
there-
in the front.
Right, the only problem we've had with that second building is that it's a single narrow driveway that curves around the back and trying to
Right.
get people, again, the issue is timing and people parking and who gets out first, and you have people from both sides. It's a practical issue, as you all understand, I'm sure.
What's the distance, do you think, from the back of the curb to the front of the units that you have?
The distance,
From the
back of
raised curb, from the asphalt,
to the front of your doors, to the doorstep.
we can do that right now.
on the first one, it's probably 30 feet.
30 feet
One
rule,
of
don't
it's
we have a
out.
30-foot
That's all I think, that's common. A lot of people on, for example, Olive Street,
That's his first house.
put parallel parking spots, either in gravel,
What are these 2 things right
brick
here?
pavers behind the curb,
2 things.
and that's perfectly legitimate.
Yeah, what is that?
That's a deck of
So
some
you
sort.
put a parallel parking spot. The young lady in the back said that some people are actually parking on their grass, which is not supposed to happen. But to put a somewhat permanent parking space with gravel or
Yeah, they're
pavers would be a solution there.
reading at 34 feet.
So you
According
get to
to the
keep a
Google
good
Maps.
chunk of your front yard. You put a parking space in, it's 8 feet wide. From the back of the curb, 8 feet, be plenty of room to, still have plenty of yard left.
I'll look at it. I mean, believe me, I appreciate, the concern of the cul-de-sac and getting vehicles to turn around down there. And I'll certainly work with the folks that, are in my buildings, but.
And that first house could easily also have a double wide, you could parallel park 2 to the left of the driveway.
So they're allowed to park along the cul-de-sac, as long as it's parallel.
Well, yeah, you would have been, after
We have made repeated
continuous
attempts to ask people,
attempts, right.
direct people, please do that so we can get our public works trucks. Mark has come to me in several winters now. It's just, cars are parking perpendicular instead of parallel. So Mr. Mertz said, something's got to give here.
But if they're not complying with that, why do you think they're gonna comply with the no parking?
I'm
Because
not
they can be
saying-
ticketed if we put the
Well,
no
yeah, but they
parking
can be
in.
ticketed for parking inappropriately too, head in. So, it seems like taking away all of their parking will just make the situation worse. Just enforce the parallel park only and no head in, and then see what you can work with, the owners. Because if we take it all away, it's just gonna make it a lot worse.
Well, we would have to go up the rest of the street still with no parking if we were going to do that, because if not, they're going to be blocking off everybody else's properties.
Right.
And parking in front of everybody else's, if they continue to have these. I went down the one night, there were 12 cars headed at 6 o'clock at night. I don't know. I couldn't turn my wife's Ford Escort around. I had to back it up in a very large cul-de-sac.
But that speaks to the congestion down there, which I agree with. And to your point, where are the cars gonna go? I mean, ultimately, unless we come up with some creative solution, the cars are gonna be somewhere. If you do create no parking, you're right. They're gonna just have to push, they're gonna walk a block away and park up there and just walk down. That's ultimately what they're gonna have to do.
Right, but right now you're risking the loss of your buildings because there's no way to get fire equipment down there.
I agree with you.
Maybe what we ought to do is write all the owners there and have them increase their parking.
Again, we would still need, I mean, yeah, we can do that.
That'd be the first step.
We have neighbors up higher saying that they're parking in front of their house already, so.
Well, I wouldn't adopt that.
So we still wanna make sure that that no parking extends from the cul-de-sac to, the corner up at Louisville.
What do you think, solicitor? Can we send, letters to the owners? Is that appropriate for us?
Well, I mean, we can certainly send and ask them to cooperate, sure.
Your property has been designed for X number of cars.
We can limit the number of cars.
It wasn't designed for 4 cars in a duplex.
Right, but I was just trying to get cooperation to help solve the
So what
problem.
we should kind of suggest is that where possible, they put in excess parking. I have excess parking in my house.
I do too.
I had 6 cars at one time.
But would it be appropriate for us to send that letter? Is that something we could do?
I
To
would think that would be the first approach.
Certainly
To
be worth a
encourage,
try.
I think it's a good idea.
and to make them know, this gentleman didn't even know about it, to let them know that there's an issue and what the problem is.
Mhm.
Maybe some of the owners don't even realize there's a problem. He
That's what
does.
I just said, yeah.
Are you
Well, I would
acquainted
think
with
that
the
would
other
be the
one?
first approach.
No, I'm not. It's really a design issue. It's a practical issue, because those houses were designed, they're duplexes with single-car garages,
Right.
built in the 1960s.
Right.
It's just, times have changed. So you're right. At the time, people probably had one car parked in the garage and everybody was happy. But times have significantly changed where teenagers now have cars and everybody has cars, and there's just, it becomes an issue of congestion. You're right. And there's no practical solution, because you cannot, there's just nowhere to put the cars short of creating more spots to put them. Because otherwise,
That's probably the answer.
The end 3 houses have approximately 60 feet directly to their rear behind their driveways. What's a regular spot, Mark? 12 feet? 10 feet?
12 by, or 11 by 20.
Okay, so let's say you got enough room for 5 cars parked head in directly behind them. That would take 15 cars up. Just those three ends at the end.
Do you live there?
I don't.
You don't live there.
I'm out there very often.
Is there
I think
room?
sending the letter is going to be the next step.
And to
Okay,
see
now,
what
can
results
Can we send a
get from
letter
that.
to the owners then, laying out this kind of information and asking them to maybe put extra parking pads on their units so that either front or back, preferably back where possible?
I think cooperation and sensitivity is a good thing. The no parking zone is just almost a last-ditch effort, but I do think we need a concerted effort. I think that notice should go out to the property owners. We gotta look them all up and make sure that they're notified. And to tell them what the option, what the logical course of events is gonna be. Should perpendicular parking continue, citations could be issued, that you can't presume on a police officer's discretion. Off-street parking, additional off-street parking ought to be considered because times have changed. I'm sure rents have gone up, so if people are renting and renting to people that have multiple vehicles, there should be places to park them. If they can't be parked safely on the street, then provision should be made and timetables should be given. Otherwise, town council will be left with no recourse but to force people to find parking somewhere else and put a no parking zone in. Particularly, I'm not a fan of a no parking zone. However, if that's the last recourse, I think council has to do that.
If
And
there
Toby,
is,
don't forget, it's a public safety issue. That's
Absolutely.
the most
Right, well,
important.
that's the,
I
That's
would
the
say
key
there's
here.
8 spots maximum on the street if they parallel parked.
let's consider the first 2, Steve,
And-
because this
Well, you have to
gentleman
consider
sitting.
guests
Well,
also.
but he, those 2 houses right there
These 2 here, yep.
are owned by this gentleman
Right,
who's visiting with us tonight.
right.
Where is the room for 2 spaces?
Here he
there?
has room. But here, I'm saying if you parked one car parallel here and one car parallel here, there's two.
But
So-
you
Here
can
and
look
here.
at that and make that decision.
Right.
I mean, that's not for us to decide, we just ask for cooperation.
I'm saying not on any of the properties. If you were only parking cars on the cul-de-sac, there's a maximum room for 8 cars
Yeah.
parked in the cul-de-sac
Parallel.
parallel.
That's what you're saying.
Right. When I was down there, like I said, there were 12.
I think the best solution is to notify the landlord, the owners.
See what kind of response you get from them.
Yeah.
I do think you should put down a date that they need to respond to you,
Now,
otherwise they'll ignore it.
if someone's got head-in parking onto their property, is it allowable for them to have some of their car, like can you have 7 feet or 8 feet of head-in parking onto the property? So that the car is 12 feet long, it's got 4 feet sticking out, would that be, because I mean, a car, if it's parked parallel, it's gonna take up 6 feet.
That's not gonna work.
You mean having a
can't-
car hanging out on the road?
I know what he's.
Just the rear bumper a little bit, you know, they've only got enough
To
space.
do that's not, overall, not gonna help with the situation. Just as much as 8 cars parked around the cul-de-sac is not gonna,
Right,
it's not gonna create enough room in my world, we need some place to get rid of snow when we're trying to clear roads. If there's cars parked all around the cul-de-sac, the first thing that happens is phone rings off the hook, you blocked my car in with your snow. And then we have to deal with that. And if they're all parked so that a portion of the car, the rear bumper from the rear wheels back or whatever, sticks out in the road, we have the same situation.
right.
Trying to get rid of the snow, there's no place to do it.
Well, aren't we putting, wasn't that something we were putting in anyhow, was the October, no parking for seasonal?
No, that's on Highview Street.
That's on
I
high.
thought we were
It's on a
considering
different
that,
street.
or this had been
That's another
considered for this.
consideration, but nevertheless, it's a no parking down in that cul-de-sac. from
Right.
November 1st through March 31st.
And that's already in order?
No,
No,
Okay.
no.
there's
It was one of the,
alternatives here.
one of the considerations, I guess, that we
Right.
talked about earlier.
So
That's
you
what I
say
thought it
no
was a
parking, where are they
consideration.
putting their cars then?
That's the thing, it's gonna make
Yeah,
it
where are they
even
gonna put them?
worse, right.
I think probably the best solution, as you've just been talking, is to get all of the property owners and see if we can't work some cooperation out with them. I mean, it's their tenants that are gonna be affected, so
And they're gonna lose tenants, because people have cars, and people, if they can't park, they're gonna move,
Mhm.
and then people aren't gonna move in if there's no place to park, so they hurt themselves, you know, by not accommodating or updating their property, so they just may not even realize that it's a problem.
I wonder if, and I'm not familiar with the zoning, but is there anything in the zoning I guess that would be what, an R2 or an R3 district? Is there anything in there about the number of parking spaces that have to be provided?
No, the only thing is that no, the answer to that is no, but is to a limit. But the impervious coverage would have to be checked, and also stormwater management. It's just not simply a matter of digging up some grass and putting a stone basin and putting pavement over top of it.
But it is if they put gravel in, right?
Gravel is okay. But if it's paved, that's why, I did hear a comment, ma'am, you, woman in the back, I'm sorry, I missed your first name or your last name. Yvonne, may I call you Yvonne? Yeah. Yvonne, you talked about how, the various times of the day, and you've had trouble getting a hold of your landlord?
Sometimes I do, yes. It takes him a while to get back to us.
Okay.
He lives up in Palm Bell, and his service up there is not that great because he only uses a cell phone. So I might leave him a message. He might get back to me 2 weeks later.
Okay. Well, if we have to do some detective work as to where we find folks, we'll do that.
I'd be more than happy to give you his number and his address.
Sounds like address might work better than
The
phone number.
address might be better.
A little bit.
I assure you, it's a post office box.
Yeah.
Likely.
So I just had a question, and this may be illegal, but there's a couple places in the town, I can think, for example, over on Shirley Drive in the Second Ward, there's a couple, or at least one, maybe even a couple homes where the homeowner creates a gravel half-moon area to park off the street. That effectively gives that person another
Parking spot.
parking
That's
space.
what I was talking about, half
Yeah.
moon or
Yeah,
rectangle,
now-
whatever, yeah.
If every one of these homeowners made a half-moon sort of configuration, does that give enough room to, that's
It
sort
would
of,
give enough room for up to 8 cars
okay,
max, and even that's pushing it.
so that's not a solution, perhaps a partial
Doesn't
solution.
sound like it, no, we had 12 in the parking lot.
And please keep in mind, this is not, this is sort of an individual situation.
Yeah,
This
they-
isn't some sort of
they-
collective,
Right.
we're gonna be herding, I don't wanna say herding cats, but that's.
Well,
what
there's a
almost came
cost
out.
involved too.
We're gonna be doing some herding
It
here.
would be the homeowner's cost,
People be
right?
willing to pay.
Yeah,
Right.
I have no idea what that would cost to put a,
Right. Wouldn't be
And
as
that's
much
why they
money.
should-
on us with our rent increase and everything else, and we're already on a budget. I mean, we've got kids in college. So, I mean, where we're at it, because we've been pretty
Hey, we
reasonable.
lowered the
It's easy
property
for us to
tax
spend
on
your
parking
money.
rental.
Exactly. Thanks.
On that street,
That's what I don't
How many
have.
spaces can you get parallel?
I think parallel parking,
You said
maximum of 8.
Steve said,
And there were 12 when I was down there the last time.
Well, the first thing, the immediate thing isn't it to have all the neighbors get together and say, just talk to each other, and we'll send a letter to everybody, please park parallel, otherwise you may be ticketed. So just, let's break away from this perpendicular parking. Yvonne, are you shaking your head
No,
no?
I was answering him,
Oh.
he was in my ear.
there's no room to do that.
Yeah. Just my one neighbor's SUV will take up both spots in the front. Then he has a pickup truck too, so, I have two smaller cars that are my kids' cars, but.
Now-
possibly fit.
Your neighbor's SUV and the pickup truck, there's not enough room to park these 2 larger vehicles in the back?
I'm already in the back.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's not taking up one of those parallel parkings anyhow.
The way ours is set up, our side of the duplex, the width of a car pulled in is about the width of our yard. So to try to parallel park one of our cars out front would not work.
yeah.
The neighbor could do it and block the walkway, but that's it.
It's almost like we're gonna have to
Then
go
to do your
lot for
suggestion, to
lot.
go deeper into the yard to make it more parking area,
Head in.
it'll still be double stacked. So we still gotta move cars around to get out.
Well, they'd have to be head-in parking for that.
Well, I have a one-lane driveway at my house, and that's what we have to do, move the cars if there's one in front.
The problem
Yeah,
is,
but
yet you're-
the problem is
that
they don't
is-
wanna inconvenience themselves to move the vehicles around.
We're not trying to
And I mean-
inconvenience ourselves or our neighbor.
Well, that's the problem, if you have a lot of vehicles, the duplexes do hold a lot of, the duplexes do hold a lot of room in the back. If they would park, you could fit enough vehicles back there, a lot of them tend not to park in the back, they all park on the street for
Ma'am, excuse me,
convenience.
if you're gonna make that type of comment, would you
Yes.
kindly
Please,
uh, approach the mic and give your name and address, please?
Maria Jarvis, 9294 North Lawrence Road. We have a lot of problems with, they tend not to park, they park in the front, in the cul-de-sac, which is fine, that's great, but there's not enough room for all the people to park head in like that. And it does become a problem, and there has been a problem with the garbage company, because they have complained, they have turned around in the cul-de-sac up above, and they backed down. That was the company that you had before. They do have a problem with that, the fire company does have a problem, the UPS, all the people have problems with it. They do have, the salt trucks and all the plows, they have a problem, they turn around up above, they go down and they back down. It is a problem. There's a lot of vehicles down there, I understand, but all the vehicles before used to fit in the duplexes, but people have more now. I understand that, but still that problem is not, you know, they're gonna have to figure something else out to do, and it is a big inconvenience to move cars around, and they don't wanna do that. And they don't wanna park, there are a couple of duplexes, they don't even park at all in the back. They all park on the street, it's convenience coming out the front door, and that's fine. But when it becomes another problem and safety, that is an issue. They don't wanna park around the back. Some of the people said because the driveway is not even made a good driveway to park in the back. It's not being taken care of. And those driveways, you have them on Highland Road, Where they do park, there's a single lane, like they said there is, a driveway going down, but people park off on the grass a little bit, so you can still get around and park parallel down the driveway. And in the back. If they have a lot of vehicles, I understand that, people do, but there was a lot of vehicles in the past. And they figured out a way of moving their vehicles around, inconveniencing themselves to do that. They don't wanna do that now.
I know my wife and I have a single driveway, and when we do it at night, we don't wait until morning when we're waking someone, but we just make sure the cars are parked properly the night before.
Right, however you have to do it, yes. But parking parallel around the circle like you're saying, the cul-de-sac, there's too many cars to do that. I agree with them. There's too many cars, you can't park like that, because they would be bumper to bumper stacked, they wouldn't even be able to get out.
Again, it sounds like a joint solution. There's some cooperation on several fronts.
Excuse me, thank you.
Well, I think we should start with a letter to the property owners, and also at the same time to the tenants, asking their cooperation as well until this is, until we come up with a final decision.
And will we be able to put a temporary no parking going up the street? So, I mean, so that if this is a problem now, they're gonna, like we said, they're gonna park up the street in front of everyone else's house.
How far up the street are you talking about?
When we originally talked to Louisville,
Yeah.
that was 455 feet we measured. I mean, that's Google map measurement, but that's close.
And that is a problem that I am having, is they tend to park up along my property. I cannot get in and out of there. I've asked some of them nicely to not park there. A lot of them don't. They don't listen. They said it's a public street. They can park there. It's a public street, but it's not public parking lot. It's not
I mean,
a
if we're
parking
gonna
lot.
get it started, we can't necessarily just have them move their cars up to the neighbors' properties.
And that's what has happened.
I'm not sure there's a temporary parking zone, no parking zone.
I see them.
No, I mean, if it's for
I saw them here.
short events, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as I'm aware of, under the vehicle code. I'm not getting much of a response looking back.
Is there no
Chief, are you aware of anything?
temporary parking for
Temporary
6 months or something?
Raise, you're blocking a street, this wouldn't fit.
Right. So do we need to consider putting the signs up beyond the cul-de-sac? And no hidden signs put down below? Temporarily?
Signs that say no head in? No, you don't need a sign.
No hidden parking?
No, you don't need a sign for that. I think a letter to everybody that lives there and the owners.
That's in the vehicle.
Head in parking, you're subject to citation.
And then we need to do something up above the cul-de-sac if they're going to continue to park.
All the way out to Louisville.
Right, so we should be considering that section at the very least now or soon.
Well, since winter's coming, I think that was part of your inclination, and for us too, to act for Public Works, is do we want to have a no parking from November 1st to March 31st here?
Well, they're saying they can't do that.
Can I ask one question though? Again, I appreciate your point of view, but you truly are picking one cul-de-sac to make this determination. And again,
It's a
what
special
I've heard
case, sir.
today is basically opinions
No.
of,
Now,
well,
you're hearing facts, sir. We've said it several times that Public Works employees can't get a truck down there.
but this can't not be the only cul-de-sac in all of
It is.
Mr. Sabina is saying
This is the
emphatically,
only cul-de-sac
yes.
that we have a problem. It's also the only cul-de-sac that's got strictly duplexes.
Okay.
There's not another cul-de-sac that I know of in McCandless, and I've been here a long time. They're all single-family dwellings around the cul-de-sacs.
It's a unique
This is
situation.
the only one with
Calling
duplexes,
this square.
And that does make a big
and
difference.
that's the problem.
I agree.
Right, you doubled the cars on the end of the cul-de-sac.
Well, let's hear any objection. I think the, again,
You got
to
another
repeat
hand.
myself, we
Yes,
have
I'd like to
another,
make a comment here.
another hand? Step up, please, sir.
Sure. My name's Ed Dorfler, and I live at 9284 North Florence Road, so it's right in the middle of the cul-de-sac. I've been there for 13 years. You know, it's the first time a no parking sign's been brought up, so we've been doing it for at least 13 years. Getting along with each other. To your point, ma'am, when you say that you live at your house and you can move cars around the driveway, absolutely, I respect that you can, but when you're dealing with another family or another person, you don't want to inconvenience them, or you don't want to cause any bad feelings or wars with your neighbors. You know, it's that's kind of not a solution. And I know as far as my property goes, I put a car in the garage and I put one up top. And when I back out of the garage, I have to finagle. There's not even enough room in there for me to actually back out because the valley's there. So I can't even back out, and there's absolutely no room to put extra cars down in, behind 9282 and 9284. We would never. There's just no space.
That is the one with the two columns in front of it?
Yes, the white columns. But there's no space around back.
Well, you'd almost have to build a retaining wall that would hold the gravel that would allow those spots to go
I'm
in.
sure my landlord would be happy about that.
Well, it would have to be the landlord's,
Yeah.
issue, but
Well,
even you guys must have difficulty down there with what I've seen down there when I've driven down there.
What do you mean by
Like,
me
when do
personally?
how often do you not have a place to park, or do you have to
Actually
drive up the hill? Or
Everyone is very respectful where they park. No one parks in front of my place or my neighbor's place, 9282. He lives there by himself and he parks his car in the garage, but he has grandkids there quite often, and so there is a car up front there quite often too. But no one really parks in front of each other's houses. I mean, I only park in front of mine. I've never had to park in front of anybody else's in the cul-de-sac, and no one's ever parked in front of me. Like, if I'm at work, I come home, nobody's ever been in my spot.
now, if they put gravel though in front of your place,
It would take
for
away my
12
yard, my
feet or
kids would
so.
have nowhere to play. I don't have much of a front yard.
so you actually have kids in the house too.
I do, and I have one in college, so heaven forbid, I might have a third car coming. I mean, add another one, But another thing about the no parking signs, my mom is handicapped, and she absolutely cannot climb a set of stairs or walk up the driveway or anything like that. So whenever she's visiting, she kind of has to park up front. So she has trouble walking down my sidewalk, and as you can see, my front yard is very level.
Right.
But so I mean, it's another. I'm not the only one that has handicapped parents in the cul-de-sac, and it's if that's something you might want to consider. As far as visiting parents, visiting anybody that's visiting the community.
Right. If
not
this
just
was,
parents, but-
if this had been an issue with visitors, this probably would have never become a problem. But it's not. It's an issue with 12 cars from the people who live there park headed and completely block the entire end of the cul-de-sac, and then even the visitors have to go somewhere else.
And I will say this, on garbage day, we're all respectful. We all, most of us go to work, or those of us that don't go to work at that particular time of the morning, will park either around back or like the one person parks in their front yard.
There must be some using it
And that
because
goes
they're
for a
still
snow day
complaining.
too. Could we try to be very respectful on a snow day? I realize that not everybody can, but I know that my neighbor and I always try to keep that driveway clean so that my yard's the one that the snowplow pushes the snow into because I don't have cars up there and at that when the weather's bad, because we can do that. Trying to think what else. As far as the fire truck coming down there, not to be funny or anything like that, but Santa Claus makes it down there every year with the fire truck. They have no issues. The first truck comes around, it's a smaller fire truck, I don't know what to call it, but it comes around, does a spin in the circle, and then Santa Claus comes in on the big fire engine, pulls all the way down to my place, and then they do have to back out. That's the thing, the fire truck does have to back out, but you could probably fit 2 or 3 fire trucks down into that cul-de-sac even with all the cars out there.
No. You definitely can't do that.
I can show you the pictures of Santa pulling in.
So I believe Santa pulls in, I believe he backs out, I absolutely
I'm
believe
just
that,
saying,
but.
to scale, I think you can fit more fire trucks down there
Not
than
with all the
just
cars
that
parked
one.
down there.
Gotta
You
be
put
able-
an aerial down there, we're not gonna put anything else in the middle, it'll park right in the middle of the cul-de-sac.
And you already said if they can't get, they'll drag them cars out of there if there's a fire, because they are in the road. So if they have to
I'd like
pull
to
the
think if
cars.
there's a
they'll
fire,
pull the
we'd all be
cars out.
aware of it and
No,
get
not
our
all the
cars the heck
time, you
out of
wouldn't.
there.
Yeah, you would like to think
No,
that,
you
but
wouldn't.
I also think that, 2 minutes of moving cars can hurt in a fire. 5 minutes has the ability to hurt in a fire. I don't know what the exact solution is. I definitely think we can do the no-hit. We have to start enforcing the no-hit in parking.
Oh,
And
the no head-in parking, everyone's right, there's no way to parallel park down there. In front of my place, you can fit 1 car and it blocks the sidewalk if you do that, so kind of parking, around the cul-de-sac wouldn't work out for anybody, probably make the situation worse.
But head-in parking in and of itself is illegal on its own right by state law, so,
Didn't know that.
well, that's,
You're basically saying we only have the option of parking illegally because we have so many cars that there's no other way to do it.
Well, why don't we send the letter to the owners and see what kind of response we get? And then we move from there. I mean, because basically we're really not accomplishing anything right now.
But if we do that, I agree with that. We
Well, I
may
think-
even be lax on the head-in parking for a few months. But I think we need to make sure from the cul-de-sac up to Louisville we're gonna need a vote on that for the next vote, so that the no parking doesn't become everybody else in the street's problem.
Oh, right, I agree with you there.
Right, so we need to put those no parking signs up with our next meeting. And then B, start working on some sort of a solution.
But then they can't park in front of their own houses, right? If you put no
Right
parking
now,
all the
they,
way
no,
up.
not in front of the duplexes.
Not the,
The duplexes are all down here on the
Right,
cul-de-sac.
right.
I'm saying these houses up here,
right, but those
We'll get-
people can't, if you put no parking up on that stem,
Where
then
they
they
putting their
can't park in front of their own
I don't
houses.
know
Yeah, what are they gonna do?
Right.
Yeah,
the
so
way I
that's-
understand, none of them do,
They're all
ever.
private houses, nobody parks on the street.
Oh, is that right?
Larger driveways, turnarounds in the driveways.
Okay.
You are aware though, if there's,
Okay.
you are aware though, if there's no parking, if you have guests, they can't park there either.
That's correct, and the people, they have parked, their guests have parked in the driveway, and some park on the street. Or they park half in the grass and half in the street, but they're there for whatever time period they're there, and then they leave.
And I will say this too, Joanne, my street has no parking for the first 250, 300 feet. And they do park there, Ridge,
From Gross,
from Belcrest down.
no, Gross to Bill.
Right, from Grossick, right. They do park there because it's not necessarily, but when the car is a problem, they can be ticketed. They were put there, that was put there in the 70s because some guy kept parking his trailers from down the street. He parked 2 semi-trailers down on the road, in front of other people's houses, because he didn't want them in front of his.
Are you sure from Louisville to the 450 feet isn't from the Louisville to the first cul-de-sac? Because it seems like a short distance.
No, it's
It's
according to
down to where
Google
they-
Maps, it's from the center of the cul-de-sac to the corner of
So
Louisville.
from Louisville down to where?
For the ordinance sake, if we pass an ordinance this month, Mark Sabina would have to have it measured from, so you're talking about the intersection from Louisville to the beginning of the cul-de-sac,
Right.
larger cul-de-sac.
I would think so. I mean, if we're gonna try to keep people from parking in front of other people's homes.
So that would be worded in the ordinance for a certain number of feet, whatever that measures off of the
Right.
equipment that we have.
Yeah, I mean, we can do it here and
Is that what,
a general.
you want us to do that as well as the letter?
Right, but I think the letter should go out in concert as well to the tenants, as well as to ask their cooperation and apprise them about the head-in parking, et cetera, and the fact that we're considering the no parking restriction should go out along with the letters to the property owners to see if they can manage in some fashion to improve what parking there is down there, and then go from there. I think that's the way it would.
The no parking zone would be from Louisville to the beginning of the second cul-de-sac. There are two cul-de-sacs. Okay, Mark Sabat is nodding his head.
You're talking about down the bottom to the bottom
The
of
beginning of the lower cul-de-sac. From
like
Louisville.
down the hill, all the way where the telephone was.
Yeah, it looks to me like we're talking about 325 to 50 feet, depending.
So while we're waiting to hear if we're gonna add these additional parking places, would it be possible, because we want the people out of the cul-de-sac, would it be possible to temporarily give reprieve for the you can't park on the grass ordinance? Because that seems like a lesser offense than the safety issue of the cul-de-sac. Because if you kick the people out of the cul-de-sac and they can't park up the road,
I
where
would be
their
fine with
car's
that.
gonna be, I mean, is that possible? I know. the
Although that
ordinance-
would be a landlord's decision too, that the tenants can't necessarily choose to park on their landlord's grass.
I thought that was an ordinance.
It is. But it is an ordinance,
But it-
but there's only those 5 houses down at the end, so it probably wouldn't be a big issue until next spring.
It's just an idea.
But I'm saying
To
that
give them
tenants couldn't choose
someplace-
to park on their landlord's grass.
The owner would have to give, if the owner objects, that would come before the ordinance being enforced. If the owner said, wait a minute, I don't want my grass messed up. If the owner allows that to happen, I mean, for a temporary solution, we can hold off on enforcing that ordinance, in my opinion.
The grass ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I
it
think.
just-
Just
They
saying,
have to have someplace to park.
that's what I'm saying. And if they have to get out of the cul-de-sac, then could we relax that ordinance
That-
if they agree
Yeah. that
as
would
to
be-
give a reprieve while we're
Right.
working this out?
Right, that would be a common sense approach.
If we were to back our cars into the grass and just have the front 2 tires, on the road, basically you're talking about 2 front tires and the bumper, that's more than enough room for any vehicle to get around, I would think.
Right, but you still have to get permission from your landlord.
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
it's
Part of our letter?
it's a bit dangerous to have part of the vehicle
What we're talking
parked.
about.
Right, but the
in a-
whole
in a-
vehicle's
can't-
already
but
parked
that's
there.
violating the
We're
vehicle
talking
code, too.
temporary.
That's why we have you,
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
careful how we
Yeah.
write things. But can we put that in our letter?
I don't know if I can contribute anymore.
What do we want to put in the letters or another?
Thank you.
The temporary
Additional
parking
thought.
in grass.
Would that be something that we would put in the letter that we're sending to the,
Bill, we really shouldn't say in the letter that we're gonna not enforce an ordinance.
That's what I'm
I think it
concerned
should
about.
just be, you don't.
You don't put down something.
We'll be sensitive about that.
You could talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Talk to them and not, but the letter to the
Police officer
landlord's
wants
the
to
first
enforce it,
thing
they
to
can
go.
enforce it no matter what. we tell
Yeah.
them.
Have a meeting with the landlords as soon as possible.
So I don't
Chief,
think- I don't
Chief,
think
you had an idea?
Yeah, I've been listening to everything being said. It seems like there's a lot of good people down there in a spirit of cooperation. I think that we articulate in the letter that's sent about particular days of
Marie?
snow plowing and good common sense and the garbage days, to really try to be cognizant of that and try to work together. I think there's a chance, maybe I'm being optimistic, that it may work, and that the alternative is posting down there. But the lady there, I think you said that there are some spaces available that people aren't using, the driveways and such, if I caught that
And I
right.
think you're being optimistic, because if it was gonna happen, it would have already happened.
Well, maybe now that it's formally brought to their attention, and they understand
Did you
what the
send- you sent a letter
repercussions,
before,
if the
didn't you?
repercussions are, I think that if they articulate maybe maybe something, maybe people will try to be cognizant of it more, and instead of having the no parking and the restrictions put upon them, maybe they'll try to work together to work it out.
As long as it would be enforced, because you've sent letters out before, and the reason I know, because they were crumbled up, thrown on the ground, and blew up on my property. So I think that's the respect like you're sort of getting. So you would have to really,
Well, I think if
Check
we
into
articulate
that.
a letter, give it a chance, and then we have to enforce it, I'll enforce it. Thank you.
And half a car on the street and half a car on the grass is not a, is a violation, as you well know.
Unfortunately.
So that can't be permitted.
Well, but head-in parking's been a violation for however long, and it's been ignored, so,
Well, it doesn't mean you have to ignore, if you ignore that, doesn't mean you have to ignore the other.
yeah.
Any other comment about this issue? Council, audience? Okay, hearing none, then we'll proceed with the letters to both the tenants and the owners. See if they can rectify something, and then we'll see how that, what kind of result we get from that before we move on.
And you want us to advertise an ordinance, as Mr. Mertz talked about? It's a third-
Right, or,
third step, okay.
or advertise, yeah,
And, that's an
and indicate that an ordinance will ensue.
From Louisville to the second cul-de-sac,
350 feet according to my map.
approximately, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we meet with the landlords, if there's too much, they can put in their deeds always how many, they can restrict how many cars the tenants have in their deeds.
No, in our lease.
In their lease, yeah. Landlord can say you can only have one car on the premises.
Right. Okay, so
I have a quick comment.
brings us to,
Wait.
young man,
And the,
step forward, please.
At door floor 9284 North Florence. In the original lease I signed with my landlord, he, 13 years ago, it did say in the lease that there's a spot out front to park.
So you have one spot in the driveway and one spot in the.
Yeah, so I have one for the garage and he said I have a spot out front to park.
Up
so.
front where?
In the street?
It would be in the street.
Sounds
He'd
like
be
on
the
the
only
street.
one.
Yeah.
Your neighbor, the other guy in the other side wouldn't have room.
Oh, you mean parking in front of our
Right.
place? I don't know, we can fit two cars in.
Head in.
At least.
Head in,
Can't do
yes.
that on a
But he
public
can't
street,
legally
can
tell
I
you?
don't know how you can lease property on a
can't lease a
public
Well,
public
street.
street.
That's why I'm bringing it up, because, in the lease, it did say I could, use that spot kind of head in.
Well, you can't do that.
I don't think that-
That's
It's,
public road, you can't lease a public road.
I don't think you can regulate the public road.
I'm just gonna measure the front of their property there.
Right, Bill, he can't regulate the public road, no. So he gave you something that he technically can't, he's not allowed to do by law. Okay, well, I guess number 5, I guess, is moot. We've all spoken about the parking situation
They do own
issues that we
41
have.
feet across the front.
He never did
Not
give his
that
address,
lease.
gentlemen, do you need his address?
I have your email address and your phone number, Rick, so if you can give me your address. Let me write it down. Thank you. Thanks, Chief.
We done with public?
Then well, we're just about.
Mark, would you be so kind to, this gentleman and his wife, she's using the elevator.
May need a refresher course, it's been a
All
long
right,
time since.
I'll do it. Well, I have to comment
I
on the
did
fire
it.
marshal's report.
Well,
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
all right, hearing
Marie,
no
would
further
you put on
comment.
Mark? Thank you.
The Public Safety Committee meeting is adjourned.
Call the order the Service Committee meeting for October 2nd of 2017. Toby, Dan Stack is ill, as you said. Do you want to touch the highlights of his fire marshal's report for the month of July 2017?
Well, really, I think Dan would be best to speak about the action items on his various activities and work. I do want to remind council that we have an annual appreciation dinner banquet for the firefighters and their significant other, their guests. And the town council, of course, is invited. And that's on November the 18th, Saturday, November 18th, and starts at 6 o'clock. So if you plan on attending, if you would send an email to Melinda Kennedy or to Dan, so they can start with the reservation process.
Where is that?
That's a Chadwick.
Chadwick, Open Works,
That's the
Chadwick,
behind.
November 18th.
Behind McDonald's.
Yeah, I was thinking Moose Club or something, but I forget what it used to be called now.
Dan Stack, he also tested,
What's that?
tested and successfully received
Yeah.
his Fire Inspector 2
What was the date of that thing?
designation. And, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't really. I think when Dan gets back in his seat, if you have any questions for him about the report, it'd be best if he answered them.
Okay, good. The next item on the agenda is, I wish to notify you that the Northland Public Library has distributed its 2018 budget. And Joanne, do you have some comments on that?
Yes, this budget was given to all of us earlier, and this is the official notice. The library is seeking a 3.43% increase, which, after going over the budget with them, is a very fair amount. Is there anyone on council who has any comment?
How many full-time people work at the library?
72, 73.
And do they utilize part-time people
Yes, yes, definitely.
and volunteers?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes, many.
Okay,
Is that 72 full-time,
73.
73 full-time? Or is that 73 total?
They're
paid?
employees
Okay,
overall,
okay.
part-time
Full and
and
part-time.
Oh.
not
Okay.
full-time, not 73, full-time. They have
Okay, so-
full-time and part-time.
Okay,
They have
full-time.
73 employees.
Okay, do you know how many volunteers?
I do not at this point, I'm sorry.
I had a question about the employee costs. That's on, well, the pages aren't numbered, so I don't know how to tell you what page it is. Under budget summary, 2018, it had total employee cost as the percentage of the budget. 75.1% of the budget is employees. Is that standard for libraries this size? It's 3/4 of the budget. I would have thought materials would be and operating expenses, but do you know what the norm, the standard is?
No.
Do they get a special rate on their utilities being a public library or?
But 75%.
Well, yeah, but I
pretty
thought, well, if your
high.
utilities were cut by 90%
The
because you were a
books are
public library.
expensive, electronic things are expensive.
Yeah,
What's the, do we know what the norm is at other libraries?
No, I
How
don't.
that compares?
No. One of the things I do know we're working with right now is the library needs a new HVAC, the whole thing, and we also need a new roof. So they're working.
what?
New roof.
roof, oh.
So they are working right now with different contractors to see what they reported last week is the one HVAC that they talked about is one that over a period of years would save us. I mean, it's pretty pricey at this point, but they are looking into grants and, other ways that they can get money to help pay for it, so as not to put such a burden on the municipalities. But again, the roof and the HVAC have been there for a long time. The
Is that
library
in
this
this-
year in 18 will be 50 years old.
Is that in this budget under the capital projects? $12,000 isn't enough for a roof.
No, it is not, because we haven't okayed that yet. We haven't okayed, any amount, because they're looking for other bids. Anyone have any objections to the budget?
What's the increase overall? from
It's
last year?
3.43.
3.43. 3.43.
I also I didn't understand what was about the 10% and the change in the retirement or something, what was that?
Page are we on?
The unnumbered
Payroll
page.
expense, yeah, that's the problem, there are no numbers. Payroll expenses is the single largest category, targeting a 7% overall salary increase. It's slated for almost 10% increase due to a 7% overall salary increase. What is that about?
Well, what they've done is, they've gone through each person. Amy has actually asked for her salary not to be increased as much as we originally had thought, because she felt that it would not be a good thing, even though she's the person in charge, to have hers go up more than the other employees. So they've done that, and then they have some other people who have gotten their library degrees, so that's changed the salary scale. You know, so there are a lot of additional things that they had to look into as far as the increase in people's salaries.
So everyone there is getting a 7% salary increase?
No, she said 7% overall.
Overall.
And she's adding 4 new positions.
Right.
See the 4 new positions underneath the expenses?
Second paragraph.
Yeah, but it says that's to offset the contribution toward their health insurance premium, so that is for, it looks like, that's why I was asking for explanation, it looks like
Well,
it's
she put it
individuals.
in large part to offset, in large part.
Okay.
It didn't mean the whole 7% going to help, I don't think.
No.
Well, above it, it says almost 10%
Right,
increase.
It reads to me more like it's 7%.
I think so, that's why I was asking.
Joanne, there's a number that looks a little
7% salary.
odd to me, and I,
That says to me it's
Yeah, but then
7%.
in parentheses, she has.
give me a second.
Yeah,
Yeah, under the,
To help offset, I
On this
understand
page
what
right
that
here,
is,
I don't know,
but
there's
that's
no
not
number
what,
on it.
it's still 7%.
Well, the 10% increase is to
It
cover
shows
the
the-
additional.
One meeting, please.
it shows the 2018 health
Thank you
cost
for
at
taking it.
202,000, and the 17 at 246,000. It's a pretty substantial difference there. The lower, okay? And then it's showing, I guess, a differential of $17,000. Do you have any idea what accounts for that, or what's going on there? I mean, it sounds like good news, but I don't know why.
Right, yeah. I have to think about that. I can't, I have so many numbers running around my head right
Yeah.
now.
Maybe you could check it out and let us.
I will. Can I do that?
See your page for just 1 second to see where you're at.
Yeah, that's the page I'm looking for.
I was questioning that number right there.
All right.
Where were you?
Right here.
Our increase is 20,000 this year.
Over here.
Yeah. Is that the right page? Yeah.
The health,
Yeah, the minus 17.
Now, I just Googled real quick, because, not to do an in-depth search, but I just looked what's the average percent of library budgets to go toward personnel, and it says the national average, of course, that's all libraries, by the American Library Association, it says it's 67.6% goes to employee costs.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that we are above national average.
But it still should be the percentage. The per- you see
You
where
know,
the
I get it, but I would
percentage-
expect,
Because
I mean,
libraries are about books, not employees, right?
yes, and,
programs.
I mean, I would expect like North Allegheny to have better help or more help than Westview or something, you know?
They have a library.
Okay, you're asking why
Well,
the
but the,
7%.
you know, the wealthier an area, I would expect to have more help than at least a lesser wealth, so an average of 67%.
Westview doesn't have a library because
Well,
we can use ours for nothing.
anyone. We can go to wherever
It
Carrick,
pulls the average way down,
right,
0.
if you wanna go to whatever other city you wanna go to.
Okay, may I get back
I
to
would
you
definitely
with the
hope we
answers to your
provide better help than
questions?
Carrick.
Yeah, Because I feel like we do need some clarification.
Okay.
And if they know that they need a new AC and they know they need a new roof, that should be in their capital budget for this next year. I mean, you
Well, they're
can't-
not planning on putting it in next year, maybe.
It sounds like it's an emergency purchase.
Oh, yes, it's an emergency
Well,
thing.
that
Is it
needs to
actually
be in their.
leaking?
Yeah, it's.
So-
Yes, I agree with
And
you,
they don't
man.
wanna put any more money into repairing what they have because they've already put in
Is
enough money
it on
into
the
it.
summary somewhere?
No.
No,
I don't think it's reasonable for us to adopt this budget and then the library to come in and say, oh, and we need a $30,000 or $50,000, $150,000 new roof. Can you guys kick in?
Yeah.
Apparently, they do contribute to a capital budget, don't they? I don't know that.
I'm looking at this as the same thing as you.
They have capital projects in there, but whether they,
Yeah.
Capital expense.
Do they have any money saved for that at all?
yes, yes, they do.
Oh, okay. Is that on here, how much they have somewhere?
No, I don't think they have anything. Okay, let me come back to you with.
So,
the-
Joanne, it sounds like council would like to see more detail on the capital expenditures for this year.
Okay.
And how much they're holding in reserve.
Is that number on the third page? 1, 2.
And we get numbers on the next one.
Is the number on the third page?
It's the,
Suggested 16,000?
it's the second full
It's
page.
approved
Looks
budget.
like this.
Yeah, well, that's the one I've got, I think. Yeah. Oh,
No.
well, no. Well, what page you on?
Materials alone.
I don't know what page
I'm looking at
you're
the
on.
page that says expense summary,
It
and then-
says budget summary.
and then it says capital expense for 2018, it's got 12,000. 2017, it's got 16,054.
This is it. I don't know.
Well, as her letter indicates, she'd be happy to attend a council
Right,
meeting. I think-
she said she will be willing to come to
Yeah.
council and discuss this if we
Well,
are
maybe
interested
next
in
Monday night
having her in.
she could answer these questions.
Pardon me?
Finance committee, see if she's available.
Okay.
Cost of living raises in Pittsburgh right now are between 2 and 2.5%, too.
That's the 9th, isn't it, Toby?
Yes.
Columbus Day.
Celebrate.
Okay,
Any other comments?
I will try to get her in next Monday. Okay, Nick. Okay, everyone satisfied with that, with Amy coming in next week?
Yes,
Okay,
I think that'd be helpful just to get.
right, okay. All right, then, Rick.
Okay, any comments by the public on any of the agenda items? Okay, hearing none, the services committee here is hereby adjourned.
Public Works will come to order. First item on the agenda is a report on the drainage program. Mark?
Okay, since we did not meet last month, I'll just take a second and bring you up to speed that most of the drainage work in August and September was concentrated on Sloop Road. We started the work, I believe, second week of August, if I remember correctly. We attempted through August until school opened at North Allegheny. We attempted to work with allowing traffic to travel through the road every day. We had several near misses where our guys were nearly run over by people that refused to pay attention to flag persons on the road. And we closed one end at Rochester Road and tried to work it that way. We continued to have problems, and it slows us down because as traffic comes through, the guys have to move off the road, get out of the way. Once school opened, we had one incident where a gentleman came up from Rochester Road, drove around the road closed signs, almost hit one of the guys, and then backed into one of our trucks and fled the scene. The guys did get his license plate and called the police. They located him at home. He is a McCandless resident. and he was cited for reckless driving, and I believe he was cited for reckless driving, leaving the scene of an accident, failure to obey traffic control devices, et cetera, et cetera. So at that point, for safety's sake and for the sake of the safety of the guys, I closed the road during the day while we were working there. That helped speed things up a little bit, and we stepped into September and got to the point on the road where the 16-inch EQT transmission line crosses Sloop Road and runs parallel up the road with our pipe. In addition to the EQT line, there's a 12-inch water main that also ran up that side of the road parallel to our pipe. That slowed us down to nearly a crawl. The guys had to dig by hand at the request of the EQT personnel who was on scene with us all day, every day. Their line had to be located by hand, and we weren't allowed to dig until their line had been located. So where we would normally get 40 to 60 feet of pipe a day, we were slowed down in many cases to 16 feet of pipe a day. So that last 660 feet that we had to put in, that probably would have taken about 10 days. It took the better part of the month of September to get that finished. We are now, the last inlet up there was poured today. We're working on a French drain in some front yards down at the bottom of the road, and we are finally on October 2nd ready for the paver to come back in and work on paving Sloop Road.
And we're only doing that section of Slip, right, not the
We're
other side.
working from Willoughby to Rochester Road.
I thought all that gas pipe was marked.
It's well marked, but federal regulations, we are not allowed to dig within 25 feet of a piece of equipment until we've actually physically located the pipe.
Is that
So you have to,
Buckeye pipe down there, did that interfere too?
pardon me?
The Buckeye pipe, did that interfere?
No, we weren't, the Buckeye pipeline wasn't anywhere near us. It's that 16-inch line that runs, I believe, from Tennessee up into New York somewhere that was the one, that's a high pressure line. There's 500 pounds of pressure on that line. So if you put a pinhole in that line, it would be a disaster. So, yeah, we're not allowed to dig around it with a piece of equipment. We have to locate it first to their satisfaction, and then we can continue to dig, we put our pipe.
A steel line pipe, right?
Yes. Yeah, the water line's a cast iron, I guess, but it's a 12-inch, and working around the two of them was very slow.
The consequences of making a mistake are pretty serious.
Yes. Yeah, so the guys, with having to deal with that, there was no reason for the guys to have to deal with people flying up and down that road that didn't want to obey flaggers and work area speed limits and all that kind of stuff, so we closed the road.
Anything else on the drainage program?
That's all the drainage that we work on in August and September.
The paving program.
Paving, Grand Day completed work on Woodcrest and Whitmer, so that the only thing that remains to be done that's actually part of the paving program is Sloop Road, and they're going to pave half of it this year, and we're going to work on the drainage on the other half through the winter, and they're going to pave the other half in the spring when they start up.
Weather permitting. Weather permitting.
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting.
And other than that, when they do move back in, they're going to pave a portion of Ringeisen Road that will be built to the sanitary authority for the force main that they put up in the middle of Ringeisen Road through the summer, and a section of Shady Oak Circle that we repaired a storm sewer on, and they're going to get those paid.
Is that one been worked on, Ringhausen, has the filling been completed
Yes.
to your satisfaction?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions of Mark before he sits down? Item number 4, review the bid tabulation for the 2017 Stormwater Management Facilities Maintenance Program. Contract Phase 2. 2017 con budget continues. $155,000 for such maintenance. Work in the amount of $79,335,000 was contracted in June 2017, leaving $75,665 available for a second contract. And I think we have those papers in front of us. Are you gonna speak to that,
I'll
Toby?
give a brief verbal report. Our stormwater engineer tried to assemble a package for this second segment, and he came up with work that the price came to be $96,750, which exceeded what we have available, $75,665. I tasked him with meeting with the bidder, and that's Jace Construction, Representative Jason Singer is here from Jace tonight. The engineer reviewed that with Jace, and there are 3 alternatives that we discussed. I put them in my memo. That the first alternative would be just to simply eliminate that work. Second alternative would be to do all of the work. It's $20,000 worth of work. And the third alternative would be to do a portion, because it would make sense to do both of the detention facilities in a development known as the Greens, which is across from the North Park Golf Course entrance. I would suggest that in order to keep our program moving, we have other stormwater facilities that we are dutifully maintaining, repairing, recontouring, and so forth. I would suggest that with the savings we've had in our paving program, Mark can comment more specifically, that our bid was about $300,000 less than what we had budgeted for paving, and we're also having good fortune with savings on the movement of earth from the Vincention project over to the buttressing that we're building for Harmony Drive, saving significant monies there. So I believe we can absorb the $20,000 and should proceed with the work. Otherwise, we would have you hold it off and simply rebid it next year. Costs might go up a bit. So I think bird in hand is worth.
How often do we rebuild these things?
Well, we have 63 of them. We usually build, rehab about, Mark, 5 to 8 a year, depending on the size and amount of work in each one.
So it's not.
Mark's coming to the microphone.
We've tried to do 5 to 8 a year. As far as, we've not really totally rebuilt any. The one in the Greens was on, I'm gonna say about 5 years ago, because there's a significant problem down there. There was a landslide inside the pond. And we bid it several years ago, and the bid exceeded what we had budgeted. So we postponed it until this year and put it in. But I'm gonna say generally, we're looking at each one of the ponds about every 10 years.
And that's a normal time period?
Well, we have inspected them more frequently. As far as construction on them though, they really don't need a whole lot.
Right, I wouldn't think they need.
You know, so
much.
About every 10 years, we get in and do some major upgrades or repairs or whatever.
It just seems like a very short period of time to me, 10 years. I would have thought 20 years would be a normal time or so, not.
Well, for the most part, we're not going to cut grass once a month in them for the most, and a lot of them are hidden so that trees fall into them. People have used them to dispose of whatever because it's a hole in the ground. And you know, as we look at them, if there's enough issue that we've lost volume, then we'll get in and do something to correct that in a shorter time period. But 10 years seems to be the time that we've needed to go in and update and correct any flaws that are in the pond. In many cases, we're repairing the outlet structures.
I like big inlet, you know, the rise.
Filled in, they filled in, that's the deal.
But for the example, the Greens was built in late '80s. So
Yeah,
we're
about 30 years ago.
about 30 years ago. So what we're finishing up right now is a lot of the ones that were built '80s and '90s. And then-
Physically doing the work is not discretionary ultimately, right? It's EPA mandated, correct?
Well, the work that we have to do is to make sure that they function the way
Well,
they were
that's
designed.
my point, yeah.
And to make sure that the volume's there.
That's
So-
the bogey you're going up against.
Correct. And that would be probably more DEP than EPA.
What did I say, EPA? I meant DEP.
Yeah.
We're in Pennsylvania.
You know, there are requirements, and we have to make sure that they're gonna meet those requirements and that it's capable of handling what it was designed to handle.
Where's that physically located?
Right across from there.
I'm asking Mark, just let him.
Which one's that?
Facility
Greens.
9B, or 9. The Greens, yeah.
9A, the Greens.
The greens, if you go all the way up into the cul-de-sac, the top end of the greens, look to your left, there's a swimming pool in the backyard. There's a roadway that snakes down over the hill, that goes down to the pond that sits well into the woods behind the houses up there.
So some of the older facilities we have recontoured, we've improved them, because when stormwater management techniques have, as we've been talking many times in many meetings, have evolved and gotten more sophisticated since the early '80s when that went into effect. So there's been some rebuilding, but more so it's been not an overhaul or rehab, it's just, for lack of a better word, sprucing them up. And that's where Mark's talking about, I think, the 10-year programs to just go back and see if there's anything, they have to be functioning correctly. We have one in particular that's a bit nagging, that is because it's ironic, it's an open meadow, but it lies fairly flat, so we keep trying to attack that problem. But other than that, engineer designs some rehab work, contractor sometimes comes up with some good ideas as well to contribute to what the engineer's doing, and we get work done. Mark's had some good ideas about them as well over the years.
And as we get further into MS4, it's gonna be more restrictive and more expensive.
My thought on this is, if it's not going to harm us in any way, or we're able to handle it, and we're already in there doing the work, wouldn't it make sense to just add the $20,000 and complete the whole
Yeah,
project?
certainly once you're in a hole, certainly once you're in one place, and yeah, you might as
Avoiding
well. I'm just
starting-
wondering how often how often you're actually in them, was what I was asking.
That's avoiding duplicate.
Are we only
starting
doing it
costs.
because, or have we made it because we said, oh, we have time for 5 or 6 a year? So we do 5 or 6 a year and it ends up being every 10 years when it really only needs to be every 15 years? Or that's what I was asking with that. It sounds like it pretty much needs to be done.
It does.
But my thought is, if you only do part of it and you go into it again next year into the same area, the cost probably will be higher.
Of course,
Right.
especially down in that hole.
Yeah,
Once you're in a particular location, go down into
we
the
should do
hole.
the greens, and if we're doing the greens, we're talking now the difference
The
of
opportunity presented
$8,000.
itself, is that basically it?
Absolutely.
My thoughts are to finish it while we're at it.
Right, that's
We have the
what I
experts
think
do
too.
it.
Right.
I concur.
Is that
I
enough?
know.
For me.
Anybody else wanna comment on that?
How about you, Greg?
I concur, I agree with it.
Okay,
Makes common sense.
Okay, we'll move to the full
we'll
contract.
move to number 5, is public comment on the agenda
Can I
item.
just ask one real quick question about that, the Greens thing?
Come up and identify yourself,
Paula.
although we know who you are.
Debbie
Debbie
Sagan,
Sagan.
Parkland Drive, since I live sort of in that area, not in the Greens though, but, the difference between, 1 and the 9A, I guess I'm asking, and 9B, is that the same general area, it's just that the older homes and the newer homes, or? Because I know I run up Beauty Drive a lot when I'm able to run, and I saw a lot of cars, or trucks, our trucks going up there last year, and then I think, you know, I was told this was what it was, so I'm just curious as to the location, as, Mr. McKim said.
The 9A is the pond, when you first enter the greens and start up the hill.
On the left there,
It's on the left, it's in a backyard.
yeah.
We were up there last year and did a major reconstruction. There was a concrete block wall in there
Okay,
that completely fell apart. We went up, tore that wall out, and Andy Banfield completely redesigned the pond, and we did a major portion of the work. What's left on it is the fine tuning, if you will. The contract that went out was to get the fine work that needed to be done to correct the problem in there. That's what 9A is on there for. And then 9B is the pond that's at the very back part of the greens.
okay, so 9A, so now what we're looking at, tuning 9A and completing 9B, and that's the $20,000 over?
No.
No,
9B is, I don't have my papers. 9B is 70, or 70,000?
79,000.
79,000 for 9B.
okay.
That's
That's
a
an
complete
overhaul.
rebuild, basically. Okay? 9A, we did with our guys, we did the rebuild. That was work that we could handle.
Okay,
And what's left of that, for whatever amount there is on there for 9A, is the fine tuning to get the final grading and get the rest of it set so that it drains properly.
okay.
And then there's another one on there, I believe, that is the remainder of the.
Mansions.
The mansion.
Yeah, the mansions.
Which is
Oh.
totally
Over
separate.
on the other side of
Oh,
North
yeah,
Park.
yeah.
That was the remainder of the 20,000.
Oh, I see, okay.
Okay, so there were three ponds on the second part of the bid for this year.
I see, thank
Okay.
you. And then, Toby, you mentioned a savings for the buttress off Harmony Drive. Is this the same savings that we had last year from that Harmony Drive project when we were able to save $100,000 that was transferred for a tax refund?
Well,
Is it the same
the
project?
buttress was $325,000, and we foresaw, when our engineers were able to redesign at the end of last year, that we're actually doing the work this year, so we're gonna see how much savings we actually realize, but it's probably gonna be even more than we anticipated.
And is that the same project, is my question, that
Yep.
we saved last year?
No, we didn't save it last year, we're saving it this year. We
but-
anticipated saving it during this year. The report that came out at the end of last year was saying that we anticipated having that savings in 2018.
And so that's now what we're looking for 2018?
Sorry, this is
19.
17. No, 17.
17.
We're still in 17. No,
Yeah, right.
Finishing the
That's like-
buttress this year. We announced it in 16, finishing it this year.
Okay, so the savings then,
It's being realized this year,
okay, so now we're looking at more savings perhaps for that?
more than we expected.
More than what we initially, that 100,000?
Maybe even more. Maybe.
Oh, maybe even more, okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, Public Works is adjourned.
I'm not sure which committee this would be best in, but what was this down here at the very bottom of this permits, building permits, for one
That's
day?
in the service committee.
Oh, that would be under services?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I missed it then. What is
Sorry,
that?
Bridges and Company?
Yeah,
That is for the.
I don't know what Carrie Lane is.
Carrie Lane is a new lane that'll be, it's a road that had to be named, it's gonna, the driveway that's gonna lead to the Stonecrest elderly care.
Oh, okay, all right. I was
The
just-
driveway's significant enough, County 911 wanted to have a name.
Okay, I just was trying to, I couldn't find out where that was, okay.
New name.
Thank you. Sorry, out of order, apologize.
It's all yours.
Okay, we're gonna call to order the Recreation Committee. and we're gonna get an update. We have some good news, and it's, so Mark, you're on again. You're on again for the Devon Park Playground equipment.
Okay, so as you all know, we started to look at replacing the playground apparatus out here in Devon Park for this year. As I started to get into getting pricing information and picking up photographs and whatnot of various equipment and had different vendors out here, we kind of settled on one particular style, which was put in the, I believe on the website, and asked for comments from the public about. Subsequent to that, I was approached by one of the suppliers, a bidding company, with information that one of the suppliers by the name of Game Time was offering a grant with matching funds for whatever the town chose to put up. And I sat down with the gentleman from bidding, and his original design, which you all have a copy of the photo, or the rendition, it's not actually a photo, but it was, the one that seemed to go over the best with everyone was something that looked sort of like a pirate ship. What he put together was something that loosely resembles a ship. As you can see, it's got a couple of sails on it, and it had a thing on the front that looked sort of like a bow of a ship. Well,
No palm trees though.
no palm trees. You have to
More
get to the island
slides.
first for the palm trees.
More slides.
Once he put all that together, I applied for a grant from Game Time, and I believe you have the information on that. We were awarded a grant for $43,791.
Nice.
Which is, they call it a 100% matching grant. We put up $43,791, they put up $43,791. So where we had originally started off looking at a structure that was gonna be about $75,000, this structure that you have the rendition of is $87,583. So we're getting a much nicer structure, and part of the grant was the structure has to be geared towards fitness. It has to have things on it that's gonna make the kids work a little bit to enjoy it. So with that, and again, what we put together got us the grant money. Now, what we have to pay for, in addition to the matching grant, we have to pay for the freight to get it here, which is almost $5,000. And then we have to pay for the installation, which was $19,900, and we have to pay for the mulch that goes under, which was $2,200. So with all of that put together and our share of the grant, we're still under $75,000.
It's a 71,000.
So we're saving money on what we had budgeted. We're getting a much nicer structure, and the grant succeeded. The only thing that won't be there when it's all finished is that little thing on the front that looks like a bow. I did have them cut that.
Is that what
off
this is
because-
supposed to be, this metal framework?
Yeah. It looks
What was it supposed to do?
It's a climbing structure,
Oh, okay.
but I told them that
It was like $5,000 more or something.
in order to fit into the space that we have out there, we needed to lose that.
So there's no actual climbing structure other than those stone steps?
There's,
Right
if
on
you
the
look all
front
around
here.
it, there's things to climb on
Right here, there's
all
like
around it.
ladders,
Oh, the ladders are considered climbing things?
I would think,
Yeah.
right?
All right.
Very nice job, Mark.
Hey, Mark, I
Very
thought-
nice.
I
That's a
thought
great job.
it's worth stating for those who may not know that the Devlin Park, because it's in the contract documents, is, that park is dedicated to the memory of a police officer who was killed in the line of duty. And I didn't know him, and I'm not sure, do you know his full name? Officer Devlin?
Albert W. Devlin.
We know him.
Yeah, I figured you guys
Know
would.
him well. He was
But I mean, I think it's nice to
he worked with me.
actually remember him, that's all.
He was killed in McCandless on the line of duty?
Ross, he was
Ross, he was chasing
pursuing a
the car.
stolen car.
He was a McCandless couple of times.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, Ms.
Any-
Zachary, Madam Chair, just want to point out to you, this bidding company, BITTING is what Mark's talking about, is the company you pointed out to me that after you had met with a conference, the individual, and that's where that lead came from.
So you just never know how you're
So
gonna
now,
save a little bit of money.
Your trip to the conference was well?
Paid for itself
Did very well,
several times
right,
over. Well,
right.
with Mark's help, of course. Any,
Mark did a nice job.
yeah, Mark did a great job. Any comments from council? Good. If that's the case, then the, recreation committee, oh, one thing I wanted to ask is, where are we on our tree planting?
Tree planting, oh, you mean for the PRP?
Yeah,
Well, remember that program can't start until March 1st for us to get credit for it.
right, but are we gonna start talking about it a little bit
Promoting.
before
Well, we should
that?
put a little,
Save your
promo.
plantings till spring, is what we need to say.
okay,
So people will, if they're gonna put in trees, can wait till spring so we can get credit for them.
yeah.
I'm thinking maybe something
So
like that.
we should do a little PR
Just a
early.
little
early
bit, yeah,
okay,
just a
sure.
little
Be
bit.
on our website.
Yeah, cause I'm holding off on my trees, plant them in the spring so we get credit.
Okay.
That's the only thing else I had. Other than that, the recreational committee is adjourned. I think that's it.
The meeting's adjourned.
Work a lot.